looking for today?
That's it. I just don't want anybody to be left out. I'm not, that's my big concern. So I'm going to give you the remaining time left over. And I've worked hard to give you as much time.
Thank you, we appreciate that. Hello, members of the board. We appreciate your time. We were in your meeting yesterday, and we know you have a lot of different things to discuss, okay? We're sorry that you are kind of suffering the effects of what the other advisory board recommended to the BLM just about a week ago, okay? They recommended to take those 45,000 wild horses and just euthanize them. That'll get rid of the problem. So that spurred one unbelievably big outrage, okay? And as you know, I hope you know, the BLM did immediately respond to that and made a public statement and said, we're not planning on accepting that recommendation from the National Advisory Board. So while we do appreciate that, we are extremely concerned because this program has been heading in this direction. Okay? It's been heading in the slaughter direction. It is the BLM itself, for years and years and years, has created this problem for now they say they cannot solve. Okay, they've created this problem by refusing to use on the range humane management, which is available. It costs $24 a dose, as opposed to $50,000 a year to take care of a horse that's then been rounded up and is now in holding facilities. So on this board itself, I did not notice that there was a wild horse and burro advocate. Is that correct? Do you know is there a wild horse and burro advocate on this board?
We
this
have
state
a
board?
chairman who is in charge of wild horse and
Okay,
burro.
I do not believe that you do.
Yeah, we
There are
do.
people that
Okay.
are not against wild horses. And
Oh, that's not the same
Sure.
thing.
And there's some that support it, to answer the question. but
Okay,
yes.
okay. You mean everybody's against?
No, I didn't say that. but
Okay.
I'm
Your
saying
question
there are
is,
some of us
do
that-
we
you
have an advocate?
Do you have an advocate that represents this enormous public interest, right? That can instantly generate 1 million comments to the BLM and tie up their phone lines. Do you have an advocate in this board that represents that part of the public? I don't believe that you do.
If I may clarify, this council has a sub-working group, which is the Wild Horse and Burro sub-working group, and I'm the chairperson of that group.
Okay, so would you call yourself an advocate for wild horses and burros?
I'm not going to comment on that right now. I'm listening to your comments.
Okay, okay. So here's our problem, right? We don't have a problem sharing our public lands, okay? We love recreating on our public lands. We love anything that you can do on our public lands, and yes, of course we need to share that. However, all we want is for it to be more fair. Okay, there's 245 million acres, right, that the BLM manages. 135 million of those have cattle allotments on them. There's only 26 million acres where wild horses and burros are still allowed to live. And of that 26 million acres, they're getting less than 18% of forage allocation, okay? The public simply doesn't think it's fair. If it was more fair, everyone would have more respect for the BLM. Those 8 million cattle, they're never mentioned in any advisory boards. It's like they don't exist. They just don't get mentioned, okay? It is always the wild horses and burros' fault when there is something wrong with our public lands. Yet, they represent less than 2% of what we're giving of our public lands, because the 26 million acres are only 11%, right? Of that, they get only 18%. Here's what we want. Out of those 26 million acres, give them a fair share of forage allocation. Give them at least 50% on those last acres where they're allowed to live, okay? We don't want to take any cattle grazing away, that can remain. Give them their fair share. Stop the roundups, because when you turn a faucet on and your sink is full, you've got to turn that faucet off, okay? You can't just say, oh, my sink is full, let me just, murder everything. That's not a solution. The solution is, and we know about this, okay? We're not an extremist organization. We are on the range every day. All those people you see there, they fix miles and miles of fences to keep wild horses off the road. Okay, they're out in 120 degrees, saving and rescuing a wild horse when it's stuck with its foot in cattle guards. It is our goal to work with the BLM and with the Forest Service towards humane solutions, okay? So we're saying, let's all work together. There's room for recreation, there's room for everything we need. This is the year 2016, and animal cruelty of these kind of proportions are just not acceptable by the American public. And the BLM knows that very well, yet we feel that they still don't get it. Because there's still a lady named Sally Spencer who has the same job that she always has, and she sent 1,800 wild horses knowingly to a kill buyer, and she delivered them at his house for $10 a piece. This is not just something we're claiming. Google it, it happened. That was 1,800 wild horses that were brutally slaughtered in Mexico. Okay, that lady still has the same job, and that sends a message to us, the public, who cherish and love our wild horses and burros, that we don't matter. Okay, we matter. We came out here today to show you that wild horses and burros are no longer a nuisance to anybody. They are, you can't, it's outdated to think that they have no value. Wild horses and burro have a huge recreational value. That's an economic value, okay? Just ask the Tonto National Forest. That's a real financial value of real estate that's close to wild horses. That is research value, scientific value, educational value, aesthetic value, you name it. Wild horses and burros have value, and that's what we want you to recommend to the BLM, okay? That we're here as the general public. Don't recommend to round up 250 burros that you think are nuisance burros. That's not what the public wants. Check out the situation. Why are they a nuisance? Are people feeding them? Do we need fencing to keep them off of the roads? Because rounding them up should be your last option, okay? Because we are the state with the least amount of wild horses left, but the most amount of burros, and that's a healthy population, and we want to keep it that way. People value these animals. So please recommend to the BLM to represent the public interest, because these lands are not called public, special interest lands. They're not called lands for profit, okay? They're called public lands. And the public has been very strong, and the public will stay strong until the BLM finally moves towards those humane management on the range. They need to send those field officers out there on the range, document those horses, know the issues, record real death rates, real birth rates, okay? Because a flyover every 3 years, that's not how you manage wild horses. You need to have the people on the ground to actually manage wild horses humanely. So it's called PZP, remember that word, you can Google it, and there's 30 years of research behind it. It's dartable, and it's humane. It does not ruin their intricate herd dynamics. We're against anything else, such as ovarectomies, geldings, and the reason is that it ruins the intricate herd dynamics of wild horses and burros. And therefore, you'll have a bunch of domestic horses walking around, and who wants to go see that, right? What the value of our wild horses and burros is that there are people that go there just to see those intricate herd dynamics, those lead stallions really taking care of those bands. And so that's what we need to preserve for future generations, because it's not right that money determines what our public lands will look like in the future, right? We think that our future generations would still want that small piece of a remnant of living history of how we got here, and on whose back did we build this country anyway? Thank you.
Excellent.
How's that?
You did great. I was just thinking to myself, God, I don't want to stop her.